Hey, this is Matt, and today we are doing and talking about some custom figures. It's been a while, like maybe a few months since I've done any custom figure work like this. There's a few tips, techniques, and tools that I want to share. And starting off with the first one is just weathering up some clone troopers. If you're trying to copy a specific clone trooper, like, oh, I want to do Rex, well, then, yeah, you have something to follow. Like if you want it to be exact, but you could just make a custom clone trooper. Like that's your tip. Just do a custom clone trooper. Like you can mess around with all kinds of designs and colors and techniques. Definitely get yourself a clone trooper, paint one up, tag me in your photo when you post it because it's gonna look awesome. Following my advice from another video about being inspired, is one of the tips was, this was for photography or just creating in general, was asking like someone else what they want. And so this is kind of along those lines. My wife and I have some friends that are moving. They're some of our best friends. We live in Texas and they're moving up north to Minnesota. They're our friends by themselves, but they also have two kids that are the same age as two of our kids. And yes, they're friends and best friends too. One thing about their sons that's awesome is they do love Star Wars, which is like really cool. But they also, they've watched some of my videos when they've come over for play dates with the kids. I forgot how they worded it, but they know I do stuff in my garage. They've asked my wife, oh, what's Mr. Matt? Has Mr. Matt built anything recently? Or they ask me specific questions about Star Wars characters or something. And so it's really cool. They're definitely some good fans, and that's little things like that keep me going and keep me excited about doing this stuff. And so as they're going away, I thought it would be cool to make custom figures for them. So following my advice of asking someone else. So I asked my friend, their dad, would they want a clone trooper or stormtrooper and what their favorite colors are. And so they both said clone troopers. They like clone troopers more. And then you guessed it, one favorite color is green and the other is blue. So that's what I did. I kind of just looked up some inspiration for some different designs on clone troopers that I liked, and I just painted away and then weathered them up. And for not doing it in a while, I really like how they came out. I did a lot of old techniques and then I tried a few new ones. So I did a little bit more than weathering these guys up. These were from the Black Series 501st. I had a few extra. I used nail polish remover to remove all of the original designs. And so they're pretty white, and almost clean like this, except for the shoulder pads. So once again, depending on the plastic or whatever material the figure is, if you try to paint it, it won't stick. It'll just come off. And one way to prevent this and just make it easier is to spray the figure with the sealer or some other kind of finish, because this is going to apply that extra layer of something for the paint to stick to. It's kind of like priming the figure. For 3D prints, I usually use this primer with my airbrush, and that's finish, or the sealer, I can easily paint on rather than I'm just painting directly to the plastic. One huge game changer for me is this masking tape, because it can be used, if you've ever painted walls before, thinking of painter's tape, you're putting on the corners so you don't want to paint the ceiling. So you could use it as simple as that. There's this one part that I don't want to get dirty, so let me cover it so I can just paint a little more freely. But it can also just, if you want to do lines like I did on these troopers, I just put it across the body and just painted. And you have to do it, the more careful and the size of pieces that you use, the better it is. I even cut some up just to get some better fits. But if you do it carefully, and it can add some time, but it's gonna be worth it. Like, you get these awesome straight lines. But on top of that, like, I've been using it for, or I have used it for some other designs, like on going back to this custom Rex figure that I did, his little symbols on his helmet. Boom, I use this tape. Like, there's no way in the world I would have been able to do that by hand. I'm sure some people can. Like, it's not that crazy, but I was able to line it up with little pieces of tape. Once I had one down, I was able to match it to make sure it's lined. Like, if you measure and analyze, are they perfect? Probably not, but like I really like how they look. And so for these figures, I use that technique to make this shoulder pad emblem. It's kind of cheesy, but I was trying to do like some kind of like Star Warsy looking Texas. You might be able to see it. You might not be able to see it. You might think it's lame. You might think it's cool, but I don't care. I wanted to do it, and I like the way it came out. And kind of peeling it off is always like that satisfying feeling. Onto the actual painting. I've come a long way, but I want to get way better at it. I know I can get better at, but like the biggest tip to share is just to use thin layers. And even though like I know this and I've said this in like a handful of videos, like I still find myself kind of impatient, and I just want to like dip the brush and just like throw on this thick layer and like, okay, I got it covered, and then I get upset it doesn't look good and I have to like go back and redo or something. Just use thin layers, be patient, like just go one layer at a time, like let it dry. This guy was pretty easy because it was like I had all these different parts, so I would kind of like do this one line, do this other line, do this other line, do this, and then by the time I'm done, the first part's pretty dry, especially because it's a small, thin layer. So then boom, I do another layer. And so this is really gonna help, not just with like a good color and a good like fit, but like it's gonna remove a lot of the brush strokes. And I know if I just kind of caked a layer on, it would have been thick and you probably would have seen like a lot more of those brush strokes. And then because you're with your brush, like I'm not, for this one, I used Citadel paints, which those are really good to kind of just go straight on. It is a little bit different than some of the other model paints that I use. It'll still dry on your brush. And so you don't want your brush to get hard. So what's good is to have a cup of water on the side and kind of mixing it. So I did that a lot. I'm not going to dip the wet brush into the paint, but it's mostly clean. And then I'll start again with a new layer. If you did use a sealer or finish, then like there's a good protective layer on your figure. And for this next tip, it's using a metal scribe, which is something I recommended in a lot of my videos. And I forgot where I saw it first, but like it's like one of my favorite tools that before I started this hobby, like I've never like used or heard of. And like I know it's a way for people to like kind of write stuff on metal, but we're not using that. We're not using it for that. I love using it for creating damage, but also here because it's extremely sharp. It's just a metal pen. There's no ink in it. It's almost like a blade, but it's really good for creating damage and like scratch marks. But here I'm going to be using it to clean up some of the paint. It could be as simple as like, just placing it on the paint and rubbing it off, or you can go a little bit harder. I didn't want to scratch it up too much. So I was being kind of careful with it, but it's, like I said, it's so sharp that it's just peeling the paint off, and it's not sealed. It's just the layer of paint and it's just kind of scratching it off, but it's so precise that it works. Like, yeah, you could use like a knife or some other kind of blade, but I just like this one just feels good for this kind of like precision work. And for other customs, I have used this to create like chipping marks and like paint removal. And I could see myself still doing this, but one technique that I really liked doing is instead of like chipping off and removing the paint, I'm just gonna add paint on top of this. So the Clone Trooper is white. Do I have this exact white color? No, but I have this one from Citadel that I really like. and it kind of matches. And so I'm going to use this with a little sponge, and I'm going to dab it on over the green. And that's going to give us that like chipping marks on the paint. It really takes it up a notch and the next level of paint detail. It is just a matter of getting a little paint. I do dab it, so I kind of dry it off on the side, like almost like dry brushing, but I just kind of dab it. And so there's like very little paint, and then I put it onto the figure and I kind of punch it on there or like stamp it on there. And the sponge is the cheap like dollar store sponge that I've had for I think a couple years. I have like 6 of them that I just kind of peel off and rip off pieces. The more weird the shape is, the better for the effect. One thing to keep in mind is to be careful with how much you do it. I say a lot too for painting because I still need to learn this. Is less is more. So like don't just go boom stamping the whole line and like there's hardly any green left. I mean, obviously unless like you want that. But like if you're just kind of doing like a basic weather paint job, like don't go crazy with it. Start off small, and then if you realize, oh, like, you know, I can add a little more to that. One other way that I've been practicing and trying to find the right amount to do is using Gundam markers or like other thin permanent markers. Like I even used like little Sharpies before. And these are a great way to add some of those like lines or scuff marks along the white or like burn marks, especially on clone troopers. And I think a lot of these can be, or for certain things, you can use them as, I think that's what they're designed for, is like the panel lining inside some of the Gundam models. But for these troopers, it works really well to kind of just add some extra detail and extra marks. You don't want to just draw lines on certain parts. Even here, I'm kind of removing some parts that I thought were just too much and I didn't like the way it came out. Like you don't want it to just be lines on the body. Like you want to like maybe like dash marks, dots, like mix it up. And even on certain parts, like if you just kind of like do a line and then rub it, it doesn't dry right away, so it'll give that like scuff mark look. So it's a cool little tool. I have, like I said, I feel like I haven't mastered that at all, but that's kind of like a finishing touch that I just kind of add to certain parts. This could be before or after the wash, but I definitely recommend to spray it one more time with the sealer or matte spray or matte finish, whatever you have, just to kind of lock in all of the paint job that you did. And then like if you are doing the wash afterward, that's not that big of a deal if it rubs off, but it for the most part, it always usually sticks on anyway. And for the last addition, and I don't know if some people might do this at the beginning or like I'm doing at the end, but it's just kind of going over with washes. And so I usually only do like a black wash and then maybe a brown wash. This one I do have it gray, but I mean, it's pretty much a black wash, just, you know, it's not as black, it's gray. And so it's not as like thick. And so I do like that just to kind of take away from that like stark white look and just to give it some more color and life. I'm already done here with the figure, but I'm just gonna add this to give it that look. And then I'll do the brown wash and kind of like, especially around the feet, around the boots, I'll put a little extra just to kind of make it a little more dirty looking, like they've been in battle, you know? It is easy to create your own wash just using like paint and water, and you can be a little fancy with a drop of like dish soap. But for this one, I do have these Vallejo washes. They have all kinds of colors, but I mainly use the black, gray, and brown. And so I just kind of applied that. I just paint it all on him. It's very watery. And then I might let it sit for a few seconds, and then I'll remove it with a paper towel, like kind of spot dry. And then I'm like, depending on how dark and what colors I want, like I'll do multiple layers of it. And I'm not sure if there's really a difference between this and just kind of like the watered down, make your own paint. but like I do like the way this flows out, and I like the way it kind of just sticks better. And lastly, a bonus tip is just to inspire others and share your work, even if it's not a good job. Like, it's awesome seeing people do their first custom figure or their first paint job or their first toy photo. Like, I love seeing that. It inspires me to like want to go do it. And even little kids, like my friends' kids, like sending pictures that like, oh, I wanted to pose like this figure, and like, it's awesome. Like, it doesn't have to be a masterpiece photo or a masterpiece custom figure. It's cool to see like people create, and it's cool to see like what people can come up with. So even if it's just adding these colored lines to a trooper, like I said, try it out. Like, if you wanna get into custom figures, just get a trooper and try this out and paint it. You don't have to post it on Instagram. Like, just, you could share it to your story and like it's gone after a day, or like share it with me on my Instagram or TikTok or whatever. And I always love seeing people's work. So don't hold it to yourself. Like, share it with others and inspire others to want to create. So if you guys are watching, we definitely miss you. I hope you like your troopers. Create and inspire.